in Washington State, Initiative 522 calls for genetically modified foods to be labeled. And now we've had some talk, particularly on the better half of the program, on the virtues and vices of genetically modified foods. And just to be clear, I don't know if the science is fully conclusive, but certainly the vast majority of science at this point, and you could argue that a lot of these studies are paid by industry and whatnot, but at this point, the vast majority of science that has been produced on the health impacts of genetically modified food in terms of eating it basically point to the idea that they are safe, and as safe as conventionally farmed foods. Now, with that said, I think there's a lot more ambiguity in terms of the broader environmental impact of this. The idea of super strains of weeds and insects. I also personally think that it is naive to separate the notion of genetically modified foods, at least in this country, from the domination of one corporation that controls the vast majority of genetically modified foods, particularly when we talk about corn and soy in this country. 65, 83%, I think, respectively, is controlled by Monsanto. It's hard not to conflate these two issues, but they are, in some respects, distinctive issues. There is a tremendous amount of money being spent in this election in Washington, or I should say this referendum in Washington, because there's fear amongst the industry that the labeling will catch on across the country. And ostensibly, the fear is this will stigmatize genetically modified foods if they are being labeled. There is no evidence, A, that it does this. There are some who argue, and in fact, this guy Linus, who was a former activist against genetically modified food and now is a proponent of them, has recently come out for labeling, because there's a feeling that the more transparency, the less that genetically modified foods will seem as something nefarious. Just to give you a sense of how much money is involved in this election, apparently on the no side, $22 million has been raised to oppose the proposal. $550, not $550,000, not $55,000, not $5,500. $550 has come from individuals and companies based in Washington, according to the public disclosures. There's been millions spent on the pro side, i.e. the labeling side as well. But it is fascinating to see how much money is being spent by industry. 88% of corn and soy planted in the United States is genetically modified in some way. Like I said, the vast majority of that is from Monsanto seeds. The advancement, again, the American Association of the Advancement of Science said in 2012, the science is quite clear. Crop improvement by the modern molecular techniques of biotechnology is safe. The European Commission agreed after sifting through 25 years of research. So did the American Medical Association. Although the AMA is backing stricter safety testing. So, this is without getting into the specifics of the studies that have been done in the past. Like I say, many of them are industry sponsored. U.S. testing of genetically modified foods is still voluntary. And some argue that it increases the use of specific pesticides like Roundup. So we don't really know. But to the preponderance of science at this point points to at least ingesting this stuff is no difference. And for years we've been doing so. I do make a distinction between what farmers are able to do in the fields versus scientists in terms of introducing different bacterias. But again, that's the science. I'm not sure why labeling should be a problem. We do it for organic. That may or may not make a difference to people, but it's done.